guess just where this idea came from was just born of contact mics, which are one of my favorite things, and then springs, which have quickly become one of my other favorite things. And so, let's see. So this is just the contact mic, and one day I just bought a bunch of springs. This is just a paper clip hot glued to a piezo. And then I found a bunch of springs at Home Depot. This is a screen door spring. Let's try this one. And I've been, like, this paper clip hasn't fallen off once. I kind of expected it to not be super sturdy, but I've been able to try this out with a lot of giant springs. And one of these connections. I don't know, the clicking is probably a bad amp. Alright. So at this point in class I would say, alright, anyone have any other ideas? What should I do with this?
Stretch it.
Stretch it, let's do it.
Strum it.
And all of this stuff also, if you have ideas, if there's something that I could do better, I'm always open to feedback. All about learning new stuff. The other spring, I think, will be a little bit more responsive.
Chicago sound professor, his name's Eric Leonson. He has this thing called Springboard. It's basically a walker with some 2x4s.
Like a walker?
Yeah, some 2x4s. Springs, like angle into it. He's bowing springs, pieces of metal.
Bowing them?
Yeah.
That's cool.
He's rubbing pieces of wood like a saxophone with a rubber mallet.
That's cool. Yeah, just hooking springs to other things.
Oh yeah, putting it on something sturdy where you can really play with the qualities of it.
Like my latest thing is I got a bunch of sheet metal. I got this giant like 6x6 sheet of metal and hung springs off the sides of that. That's pretty wild. So that is bizarre. So this is picking up whatever the spring is doing and amplifying that. So if we can get the spring vibrating in an interesting way, as would happen if this was connected to a speaker, then it should sound cool, if our calculations are correct. So here, this is a speaker that was taken out of one of these, actually. And again, just hot glued a paper clip right here, hook on the other end of the spring. And you need an amp to drive the speaker. So at Goodwill, I found an old, it's like a little portable, like before Bluetooth speakers, just a little battery powered thing. Took the speakers off of that and then wired where the speaker's attached to here, just wired that to this speaker. So that was just 2 points to solder. Then need a sound. This is a sound. All right, Big Bird's piano. All right, on. And then this, just like this concept, piezo is amplifying a spring that's being vibrated by a speaker. That's essentially exactly what this is. The only difference is instead of using a stupid little amp like this, I found a karaoke machine at Goodwill, so I had 2 inputs and I already had a little echo on there. And that's what this bottom part is. And there were speakers on either side. I took those speakers out and then wired where those speakers would connect. So the output of the amp is wired to this speaker, which I think is the exact same as this one. This speaker is attached to the spring, like this would be. Piezo is inside, and then the output of this piezo goes through acoustic guitar EQ, which is essentially a piezo EQ. And the EQ coming off the spring, and especially the piezo, that makes a ton of difference, I found. All right, now we're getting somewhere.
Cooking gas.
It always amazes me how sensitive these things are. I don't know how well it's connected to that. speakers also have been through some, there it is. A lot of times with drum beats, you'll first just feel the bass in it. You'll just hear the spring pulsing with the bass. So that doesn't, let's try plugging it into this guy. So Yamaha DD6 drum machine. Took the speaker out of that because there's a ton of awesome space up here that I wanted to add switches to. So I took the speaker out, and then someone gave me some old weather radios. So I attached those, and that's what the speakers are now. They sound awful, but it looks cool. The spring that I was using when I was experimenting with this was much shorter.
Your hand attached to the piano.
Now, one thing I found, we're getting somewhere. One thing I found testing this stuff is because you have a speaker that's playing out loud, trying to balance the sound of that speaker with what you're hearing. So often if I just recorded this direct in, it would be a ton of spring because that's only amplifying what the spring is doing. Now we need to get this speaker vibrating. What should we plug in? Let's go this guy. And it's wild that it sounds like it's on, doesn't it? Springs. Alright, output here. Now this already had two inputs, which is red. Alright. EQ. This thing cuts out if it gets too much volume. There's so many weird, there's like a speed metal beat. It's alright, but yeah, cool. Alright, so now I'm gonna do. Alright. There we go. So Big Bird's piano. I wired a jack to the piezo's underneath each of these pads. So I haven't plugged anything in yet that didn't trigger the pads. So they are pretty sensitive, which is pretty cool. And then, yeah, it's wild. What it's doing now is it's taking this sound and that's going to trigger the pads. And then if I hold down the pad assign button, it'll change the sound of that pad each time. And then I've got the splitters like crazy. So there's one for each different pad, so you can switch between each one, making weird sounds. Record function on this. On this one?
Yeah, through the reverb.
Just
Like one of the loops. Just
there. This is country western. Let's do Dixieland jazz or gamelan ketchak. I need to fix the outfit. Output's a little, alright.
Could you give that spring a nice little slap?
I would want to. Just, don't do much,
Doesn't like that?
That's noisy. Alright, so this part of the pig is, that's such a weird way to start a sentence. But this is a delay circuit. So essentially a delay pedal. So I'm going to plug DD6 into the input on the pig. Feels weird. EQ. And this thing cuts out if it gets too much volume. There's so many weird, there's like a speed metal beat. It's alright, but yeah, cool. Alright, so now I'm gonna do. Alright. There we go. So Big Bird's piano. I wired a jack to the piezo's underneath each of these pads. So I haven't plugged anything in yet that didn't trigger the pads. So they are pretty sensitive, which is pretty cool. And then, yeah, it's wild. What it's doing now is it's taking this sound and that's going to trigger the pads, and then if I hold down the pad assign button, it'll change the sound of that pad each time. And then I've got the splitters like crazy, so there's one for each different pad, so you can switch between each one, making weird sounds. Record function on this. On this one?
Yeah, through the reverb.
Just
like one of the loops. Just
there. This is country western. Let's do Dixieland jazz or gamelan ketchak. I need to fix the outfit. Output's a little, alright.
Could you give that spring a nice little slap?
I would want to. Just, don't do much, this part of the pig is, that's such a weird way to start a sentence. But this is a delay circuit. So essentially a delay pedal. So I'm going to plug DD6 into the input on the pig. Feels weird to say.
That's a delay pedal.
Wait, where's the DD6 at?
This is the DD6.
Oh.
The big drum thing is DD6.
Oh, I thought you meant at the pedal DD6. The delay.
No.
Oh, no.
The drum machine. I got confused.
Yeah, this the Yamaha DD6.
What's the platters on the pig do?
Okay, so there's the delay side of it, which is what I've got. Settle down. Alright. Okay, delay. That is. The Yamaha DD series is awesome. Like, this is the first DD6 I've done, but I modified a couple of DD7s, and they're similar, but they have a sound that says 1, 2, 3, 4, which makes all the difference. Okay, so we got delay in the front of the pig. Then inside here is a stylophone that Mike gave me. It's a stylophone beatbox, so each pad was a different drum, and you could switch between different voices. So I housed the circuit in a piggy bank, or whatever this is, and tied each of those metal pads to a mason jar lid, and then put pitch and some other stuff on it, and just wired the buttons that were originally on the stylophone right here. And then, if I don't have anything plugged into the input, and this is going to be, we'll see if this works. This thing is still getting the finishing touches. I traded out the stylus for some antennas. These came from these weather radios, actually. All right, we're in business. And I'm still trying to get them to be as responsive as possible. If anybody has ideas on how to make these work every time you hit them, let's see. This also.
The top of them to the platter.
What's that?
The top of them only.
How do you mean?
Just the top.
Do it again. Pitch. Without the delay. And we got different voices. So you got this. Also has a bass. What's that? 2 minutes? Yeah. Just yell at me. And then my favorite part about this thing is it has like a record function. You record a little bit, it plays it back, and then whatever you play over that, it overdubs. So
you basically have a loop.
yes, yeah, and it's just simple looper, and it has 3 different voices. Like there's like beatboxing sound. One like puts it it's like a chromatic scale on a bass. Loop over. It's a pretty primitive looper, but does a trick. Alright. Once I get this thing fully functional, it's gonna be super awesome. Because the stylophone on its own is like it was really responsive. There's a distracting. Yep. delay. So now it's just overdubbing everything I'm doing. What's that? Yeah. Just tell me to stop. It's all good. Yeah, what's up?
Really, have you ever thought of just creating a sample library?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Seriously,
I could totally do that. The only reason if there was an impetus, I would do that. Like, if you know how I could format that, where I could, I don't know how sample libraries work. When I record stuff.
I'll find a way to help you.
Seriously,
I would love to sample all of your stuff.
I would love to have these sampled and be
Maybe
out
we
in the
should
world.
just pair up here.
Or like I'll if anybody wants samples, like I'll give you a card, hit me up. Open invite. If anybody ever wants to make stuff, that's what I'm doing all the time if I'm not teaching little kids.
That last thing was golden.
Really, you have a store,
drone.
right?
I'm sorry?
You have a store, right?
I've got the Etsy going, Instagram, Facebook. My website's got most of the stuff on there. Housecat.com. So there's the plug.
Where'd you get that paid?
Sweet.
I'm sorry?
Where'd you get that paid?
Goodwill. Yeah, all this stuff is budget as possible. This was a CD rack, and this was a lot of dremeling. There wasn't a ton of like modifying the circuit that was there.
Wow.
It was just like figuring out how to take part of something that's plastic and affix it to something else that's plastic, which is a challenge.
I bet your students love the pig.
I actually haven't shown them that one yet. It's still moving it here. Like, you guys can be careful around it. Kids, however, can't be trusted.
Should you play out?
What's that?
Play out.
I've started to. I've got a show on March 17th at the Groove, and I've not done a ton, like setting up circuit bent stuff for live performance is an interesting challenge. I'm playing out more, but I do a lot of recording.
Try to do some consideration in looping, because just with your springs and the way they stretch, and then whatever metal to metal contact you have, if you can loop that gives you something to base on, like he was doing, where you've got something where you can keep building on it.
The setup I have is like, I got some Gorm board. I don't know if you get it from IKEA, and it's just like, it has slats in it, and it's perfect for making a pedal board. So I got two of those, and I got a 2-tier keyboard stand. So it's just covered in a bunch of colorful stuff, and then it's all going to a mixer, and then the send goes through 3 loop pedals in a row. DL4 into Jam Man into 360, so I can juggle things around, which is another kind of trying to learn how to play a new instrument, trying to figure out how that, just wrap your head around it. But
How many overdubs of that looper do?
It just keeps
You haven't
overdubbing.
figured it out.
And it won't reset the loop until you turn it off. But
Did the original loops diminish? Or?
I have not gotten it to a point where it just devolves into chaos.
So in the time that I had the unit that this is based off of, the loops, like after like 10 or 20, you notice the previous ones get crappier and crappier.
But
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever tried that out.